friends, it's Rana and welcome back to the fifth and last episode of the Do We Match series, a series on my channel where I read some of my favorite booktubers' favorite books, rate these books, give them a set of points, and at the end of each episode I calculate these points to find out their final score out of 100, which places them on the Do We Match ranking list, which currently looks like this with other booktubers. I started the series to find out who among my favorite booktubers matches my reading taste, my weird reading taste, the best. And for our final episode, I'll be talking about the favorite books of our king, Elias. Elias has 5 big, hefty books on his list, and the first book is The Death of Vivik Oji by Ekweki Imezi. This book is a lot. Most of the books on Elias's list deal with heavy topics, and this one is not an exception. It is about a young man called Vivik. He has a Nigerian father and an Indian immigrant mother. This book is set in Nigeria, and early on we are told that Vivik died the day the market burned down. His body was left naked in front of his house where his mother found him. We don't know why, how, or when he died. We follow multiple characters. We see Vivik through them, what they thought of him, their relationship with him, and slowly revealing what happened and what led to Vivik's death. This book was heavy and hard to read sometimes. It deals with topics like identity, sexual orientations, and how society deals with people who are different than the normal. I can't say I enjoyed this book. I found it to be a very good book and well written, but I had some issues with it, like the relationship between Vivik and another character and the reveal of his death at the end of the book, as well as the fact that we didn't really get to know him as himself rather than as how people viewed him or saw him. I would have loved to read more from his perspective, but that didn't happen. Overall, a very solid book, and I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book is The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Darye. This book is also set in Nigeria, and I think it follows a 14-year-old girl called Aduni, who lives with her father and her brother. After her mother's death, who she dearly loved, her father breaks his promise to her mother and he stops her from going to school, and he marries her off to a wealthy old man who already have 2 wives. He did this because he wanted her bride price, to better his life and to buy more food in exchange of his daughter. His only daughter. He sold her basically for marriage to get money to better his life. This book is very heartbreaking. Whenever you think that nothing worse will happen, it happens. Whenever something good happens to Adoni, a million bad things follows it. It is similar in this aspect to another book that I'll talk about it in this video in a minute, but I think Elias has a thing for really sad and depressing books. Don't get me wrong, I really like this book, and I got attached to Adoni and her strong resilience to live a better life and pursue her dream of education. I appreciated that the book was written in broken English to emphasize the Nigerian dialect. It made it feel more real. I also quite enjoyed that the later chapters in this book started with facts about Nigeria, which I really loved because I learned new things that I never knew about Nigeria as a country. A really great book, and it reminded me a little bit of Khaled Hosseini's books. It is not as horrifying as Hosseini's books, but it has a similar vibe to them. Amazing book. I loved it and gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book is Vita Nostra by Marina Diachinko. I don't know why all the authors in today's video have really hard names to pronounce. I'm having really hard time here. But this book, I don't know what to tell you about it because I DNF'd it like 80 pages in because I found it to be really boring. Nothing happened in these 80 pages, so I decided to stop reading it. It also reminded me a lot of Catherine House, and I hated Catherine House, so I stopped reading it. And because I didn't finish reading it, I will not count them towards the final score of Elias for today's video because it is not fair to count it when I didn't finish reading it and didn't give it a proper rating. The next book is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. If you don't know about this book, you are the lucky one here. This book was something else. I never read anything like it before, and I hope I never do that again. I pray to God that I never pick a book similar to it ever again. What is this book about? It is basically about a group of friends, 4 friends to be exact, Jude, Willem, JP, and Malcolm. We follow them throughout their lives, starting from their 20s till the end of their lives. We get introduced to all of them in the first part, but the book focuses more on Jude. He is our main character. It is really hard to talk about this book without spoiling anything about it, because it doesn't focus on the plot as much as it focuses on characters and on trauma, a lot of trauma. This book is a storm, and you should be prepared for it before you read it. I would never recommend it to anyone ever, but if you insist on reading it, please look up the list of trigger warnings before reading it, because it is quite long and it has everything in it. It has it in this list of trigger warnings, because everything bad that could happen to a person happened to one specific character, and it is truly insane to say the least. I initially gave A Little Life 4 out of 5 stars, but then after many thoughts I lowered it to 3 out of 5 stars because of many reasons that I don't really like to mention here. If you would like to know more about my thoughts and what I liked and disliked about this book, you could go and watch my reading vlog of A Little Life. At the end of it, I gave a mini review and mentioned all the things that I disliked and liked. You can just go and watch it, because it would be really repetitive if I repeated myself all over again in this video. If you don't want to watch that reading vlog, all you need to know is that this book gave me a PTSD, and I will always think about it till the end of my life, and it is not a compliment. It really scarred me. The next book is totally different than A Little Life. It is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book follows Linus Baker, who is a 40-year-old lonely man who lives alone with his cat. He works as a caseworker in the department in charge of magical youth. All his life he has been lonely, and he dedicated his life for his job. All his days looks the same, until one day he is summoned by extremely upper management, where he is given a highly classified case where he needs to go and visit an orphanage on an island to make sure that the orphans there are well taken care of and that they won't bring the end of days, and also to make sure that the caretaker in that orphanage is doing his job right. But things turn out different, very different than what he expected. I read this book in 2020, and it was also one of my favorite books of that year. I really love this book. It isn't a masterpiece, it isn't mind-blowing, it is very predictable. Everything you expect to happen happens, but there's something about it that brings joy to the reader. Reading it felt familiar to me, like I was lost and found home. I know, very cheesy, but it truly was wonderful. It really felt like a warm hug in a stormy day. And extra points for being very funny. I loved all the characters, and my favorite was Linus's cat. She was everything. There's this point also, when reading the book, it felt very vivid. It is like watching an animation movie. I obviously gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm looking forward to rereading it as an audiobook, because I heard that the audiobook is excellent. So that's it for all of Elias's favorite books. I calculated his points, and his final score out of 100 is 84.2, which places him at the first place of the Dewey Match ranking list, which I didn't see coming at all. I previously knew that we had similar reading tastes, but I didn't expect him to get this high score. I know I DNF'd Vita Nostra, but that doesn't count. I can now pick up more recommendations by Elias, knowing that there is a high chance that I will love his recommendations after doing this series. This was a great conclusion to the series. I had really fun time doing the Dewey Match series, but I won't be doing anything similar to it anytime soon, because I spent my 2021 reading only books that other people like, to not reading books that I was anticipating. That's why I will only be reading books I want to read in the year 2022. So that's it for today's video. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe to see my future videos, and I will see you next time. Bye!